For the Democrats, there's no bigger story than claiming Russia flipping the election in favor of a President Trump, a man they are now labeling treasonous. But many Democrats are unable to understand why some 62 million Americans voted for the then real estate tycoon. The president insists that Russia was unsuccessful in affecting the actual outcome, though some Republicans want to be clear Russia had some kind of impact.
Russia's actions had no impact at all on the outcome of the election.
The Russians most certainly, under the direction of Vladimir Putin, interfered in our election after yesterday and the reaction to yesterday. It'd be hard to argue that Putin wasn't successful.
So let's talk about it with tonight's panel. Fox News contributor, syndicated radio talk show host Richard Fowler, and senior columnist for townhall.com, Kurt Schlichter. Welcome, gentlemen.
Good to be here, Shannon. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's great to have you. Let's talk about this. There have been calls for impeachment. Chad Pergram just talking about that. There are a number of Democrats who say, please stop talking about that. There are a number of Democrats who don't want to stop talking about it. Richard, who does it benefit?
Listen, I think anytime the president makes a foreign misstep like he did yesterday, it benefits the Democrats. But it doesn't benefit anybody at the end of the day. It hurts the American people, right? Because it shows that our president is weak abroad, right? And when he goes in front of Vladimir Putin, which we can all agree is our #1 geopolitical foe, and he makes a mistake saying that he doesn't agree with our intelligence agency and he's dealing with a domestic issue of who took the DNC server, whether or not the DNC server was taken, it makes all Americans look bad and it makes our political system look bad. And I think that's why both Democrats and Republicans are outraged today.
Well, it's interesting because this is raising another conversation. We had a former CIA guy who happens to be a commentator on another channel saying, when do we see almost a shadow government coming out and saying we cannot side with the government, whether it's the cabinet or the Senate? I think that's a big question. Today you had Rush Limbaugh talking about that, saying people make these kinds of statements and then you make the reality of the, quote, deep state very real for people, and you even push more people to President Trump. Do you think they realize, Kurt, what they're doing?
Oh, I think they've completely lost it, Shannon. I don't get this. Let's promote this sort of deep state coup idea to own the conservatives. It's nuts. Normal people are looking at this, to the extent they're even looking at it. I have not heard someone outside our little world of politics, out in the real world, talking about this, while on Twitter and on TV, people are talking about nothing but. But when normal people see this, they're like, well, maybe having better relations with Russia isn't a bad idea. Maybe I don't want to send my son off to another endless war. Maybe it's better if if we somehow make some sort of arrangement with them. Look, I'm literally a Cold Warrior. I was literally in Germany during the end of the Cold War. I have no illusions about the Russians. I helped train Ukrainians. But peace is better than war, and all this crazy talk about this is an act of war and then going on to this is treason, it's dumb. And I think it's going to hurt the Democrats.
I'm sorry. The fact that the Russian government bought fake news, they try to misinform voters, they try to hack they try to hack both political parties, and they try to hack state election systems. That is not something that is wrong. That's something that's an attack on our democracy.
You act like you're surprised that the Russians act like Russians.
Right,
okay?
and that is an attack. It was an attack. And wait a minute. If they did this,
gentlemen, if you'll hold on just a second, do both of you agree that the Russians did, as our intelligence agencies have said, and our president has said he believes them as well? Do you believe that Russia had an impact, or at least was meddling? And you can debate about what kind of impact there was, but we all agree votes were not changed. They did not go into voting systems and change votes.
They had an impact or an influence on this election. Did they change votes?
Oh,
no.
Baloney.
Oh, okay, so Kurt, you don't think they did it all?
They literally put fake news into our media.
Yeah, but we get plenty of that. It wasn't just from the Russians. I felt like there was plenty of that out there.
They influenced our election, and the president went across. The president went over there, and he had a moment to be strong and to be courageous and to call out Putin for the KGB post-Soviet that he is, and he did not.
Okay, but let me play something from Senator John Cornyn. He's one of the top Republican senators. Here's what he said today.
Better wake up, and rather than the blame game and pointing fingers, we better get ready for the next election, the midterm election in 2018.
Kurt, you agree? Could we be doing more?
Exactly. Look, Of course we should. The Russians are always going to act like the Russians. You know, 6 years ago when Mitt Romney was warning about the Russians, he got this snarky, oh, the 80s called and want their Cold War back. The Russians have always been bad. The Russians have always meddled. From the communists in the 40s to the nuclear freeze in the 80s to this nonsense now. But did they actually influence this election? Did a few people, you know, in their little Vladivostok boiler rooms, putting up some Facebook ads, change the election?
You can't have your cake. You can't have your cake and eat it too.
All right, well,
there's 12. There's been 12.
That's
there's
a
12,
bad analogy.
12 higher.
Here's
There's 12.
the thing.
According to the Mueller indictment, there are 12 top-tier Russian government officials who try to meddle in our election, and you are correct. They've done it in centuries and decades in the past, and we've got to stop it.
I think you guys agree on that. There was meddling, and the thing that's so tough, I think, for most of us here in the U.S. is to think everybody across the political spectrum says this is exactly what Russia wants to do, is to divide the country from within and have each other at each other's throats.
I agree.
Can we agree on that?
The president should lead here, Shannon.
Exactly.
I agree. The president should lead, and how he leads is by saying we should fortify our election system and we should pass a bill to do it immediately. He hasn't done that.
I think we all agree on that. I do.
But he hasn't done that. Where's the action, Kurt?
Well, listen, a lot of it is up to the folks on Capitol Hill, too. Let's not forget they need to get their acts together.
ICE.
All right. Okay, well, we're going to talk about ICE in just a minute. Gentlemen, thank you both. Always good to see you, Richard and Kurt. Come back.
Thanks, Shannon.